Happy Wednesday, everyone. I was trying to get in here at 11:11 so that we could get started. So I'm excited to get started with you all now at this time. ah, it's been a busy morning. So let's talk a little bit about some orgasmic abundance today. One of my favorite topics. One of my favorites. I'm just doing a little invitation. So happy Wednesday again, everyone. Let's see what kind of magic we can create in here together, and especially when we start talking about orgasm and money and all of these things that we've already been talking about so far in this space. I definitely, if there's someone who would like to get online, just let me know, and we can just jump right on into things here. I'm just inviting. Okay. Inviting my dear beloved ones, dearly beloved. We are gathered here together on the heels of Prince, no less. I wish I could play music coming into these lives, because Facebook has everything so blocked. I won't be long today though, unless you all have some juicy stuff that you want to share. So hey, so I'm going to stop inviting for now just so we can get into this. There's so many wonderful things going on that I just wanted to come and share with you all how real orgasmic abundance is. About 2 years ago when I came back from Costa Rica, I had been sitting on something called Orgasmic Abundance for a while, and I launched Orgasmic Abundance as a telesummit. And there were special guests who were featured on this telesummit. And oh, yes, you're right. I do have to have my own tunes created. You're so right, Dana. Thank you for saying that. Hey, Sabira, where you been, girl? In the kitchen, in the cosmic lab, cooking up some wonderful things. So let me just tell you, that was one of I worked so hard for that particular telesummit. You all may see the Orgasmic Abundant Woman page, and I haven't had a whole lot of our activity on it. But Orgasmic Abundance is more than a telesummit. Orgasmic Abundance is a woman leveraging her feminine to manifest the desires of her heart, in particularly in prosperity, but not limited to just money. A lot of times when we start thinking about money, we only think about dollars and cents, or I should say, when we start thinking about abundance, we only think about dollars and cents. And oftentimes what that does is it cancels out prosperity, because we are not seeing the places where we are so abundant and there's so many opportunities. A part of that is because many of us have been taught to have a employee mindset, and an employee mindset meaning we trade time for dollars. And so the same is true. It shows up. The employee mindset will show up in our relationships. The employee mindset will show up in our sexuality. And when we talk about, thank you. when we talk about orgasm, orgasm a lot of times has been, first of all, love, sex, and money already it's a zone of tenderness. It's a hot spot. But when we start talking about orgasm, a lot of times people don't tell the truth, just like people don't always tell you the truth when it comes to their money, or their love life. because a lot of times we are invested in creating an image around what it is, or there's some embarrassment or shame around our abilities in any of those areas, love, sex, or money. And so when it comes to orgasm, a lot of times orgasm is something that kind of like is a byproduct of what somebody else is giving you. And so when we talk about orgasm, it holds so many messages. Hey sis, how you doing? It holds so many messages for the spiritual process, for the unfolding process, even around prosperity. I tell this story a lot of times to those who are in the juicy community, but when it comes to love, sex, and money, and particularly when it comes to orgasm, when I entered into this space of really pursuing the science around sensuality, my womb, and healing my womanhood. Hey sis, how you doing, love? Shout out to Lexi, who came out to hear me speak at Tacoma Park Metaphysical Chapel, and she showed up when I spoke at the other event for Easter. So shout out to those who show up and give that extra layer of support. It's so appreciated, and I just wanted to say thank you. So when it comes to our orgasm, a lot of times it's something that we all desire. It's something that sets us on fire. It's something that can turn us completely out. And depending on how you had your very first orgasm, if you've ever had it again or don't have them frequently, a lot of times orgasm is something that, depending on how you had your first one, it begins to shape your relationship with yourself, with others, and your own power, particularly if your orgasm is something that you have believed is something somebody else outside gives to you. You see how it can line up with the employee mindset? And so, in She Magic for the last 4 months, we have been focused on money. We started off with the very basic in terms of developing the relationship with our ancestors and our lineage. And then we went into breaking money curses. And from money curses, we went into legacy. Now, the good news, because you all are in Good Girls Gone Goddess, you get a little bit of the drip effect of what we're doing in the deeper processes. And this is no way so much a substitute as it is a teaser, because there has to be a sacred container to deposit certain content into. You need the sacred container. And so when we look at She Magic Money, when we've been talking about She Magic Money in the coaching clinics, the monthly coaching clinics, one of the things that we moved into, I just had an empowering session that will be given to those in the coaching clinic around options, having options. And a lot of times when it comes to orgasm, we have limited our options, just like we have limited the options around abundance. And one of the things that, is obvious in terms of the telesummit that I did is reminding you that business and pleasure can mix. I know that we have been conditioned not to mix business with pleasure. I know when you work for someone else, and you, especially when you are in certain environments, that's necessary. It does apply in terms of certain laws, and particularly now with the women who are coming out and sharing their story. But the second thing is, we were not designed to be afraid of men, much less be afraid of our sexuality and sensuality, because it is a place of worship. It is a place it's a high ground. And so it just speaks to the degeneration of this society that we have to we send a conflicting message when it comes to all things regarding our sensuality and our sexuality. And so the first thing is that they don't connect. But you all know that sometimes when you are having great sex, when you are in love, everything starts flowing. And you know that when your money not right, a lot of times your mind is not right and you can't get into it, even when you use sexuality as some type of escape. But we're not even just talking here about when we talk about orgasmic abundance in terms of just sexuality. Instead of Meek Mills, they freed Meek Mills, by the way. And you know, I like to quote his song, "It's levels to this shit," but we're going to put a spin on it and say it's levels to this shift. It's levels to this shift. And so sometimes we shift on one level, but we don't fully explore the other levels. And so, number one, I said business and pleasure can mix. And how does that business and pleasure, how can it mix? Well, just like we've been programmed to think of things in the external when it comes to business, then when we look at pleasure, of course, we go externally. But when a woman begins to embrace pleasure in her life, it begins to mix because she becomes circular instead of linear and in boxes. You know that I have to put this in this box over here, and then I have to put this in this box over here. And we find ourselves being fragmented. And so, you know, we don't fully express. I don't know about you, but there was a point before I went abroad where I had a wardrobe for the pulpit. I had a wardrobe for when I did my goddess runs in Miami. I had a wardrobe for going out in DC. And look, when I got ready to put on my Miami clothes, I found that's how I had the awareness. Like, ooh, I would never wear that in DC. If you don't think that your environment and your location has an influence, it absolutely does in terms of how you express your freedom and who you're around. Because oftentimes we worry about judgment, and judgment oftentimes comes from the very people who we're hanging around more so than people who don't know us. And that's why a lot of times many of us like to go into spaces where no one knows our name, you know, like the song on Cheers. You want to go where everybody knows your name, but not always the case, right? And so when it comes to orgasmic abundance, you know, even that title can be scary for some women because we worry about that whole idea of being attached to being appropriate, particularly if you have been a good girl. So it's like, well, yeah, I talk about that with my girls, because y'all know when we go out to eat, when we hang out together, we can get pretty detailed in our exploration of certain things, and especially the things that we desire and that we like. So when it comes to orgasmic abundance, living orgasmically sometimes requires letting go. Number two, letting go of the preconceived notions that we have about ourselves or about what we think other people are going to think about us. Sometimes we have built up an idea of what others are going to think, feel, say if we were to explore certain things. But let me tell you, when it comes to following your bliss, we talked about that last week. When it comes to following your bliss, it still is a place, a teachable area. Thank you so much for the hearts. I miss you, Dana. And I know so many people are doing their work in with us in private spaces and other private spaces, but I do appreciate the love. So when it comes to following your bliss, so many of us don't trust that. I know that even as much as I had mastered the pleasure technology, as long as I was in a process, as long as I was having my handheld, but then when I was outside of a process and it was time for me to integrate certain principles into my life, it felt scary because it's like, oh, am I really going to trust this? And, I wrote an article about manifesting a juicy yes. Like literally we talk about making money out of thin air. And so the guest that I just had on for the coaching clinic really talked about making money out of thin air. Like, that's a real thing. And as I study commerce, I understand that we just have not been taught the tools on how to make money out of thin air. So therefore, we don't think that it's real. So when you talk about making money out of thin air, the same is true when it comes to following, hey, love, comes to following your bliss. I didn't really fully believe it. I didn't really fully believe it. Let me remix that. I believed it, but I didn't fully know it. Sometimes when you go through a process or through a change, particularly with a coach, a mentor, what you're doing is you're building up your faith. You're building up your muscles. But and what you're doing, you're going out and you're doing certain things and you're coming back for that accountability and that support. But then after you do that, now it's like, okay, when it's time to implement these tools, this is where you see, do you believe or do you know? Because the belief is the absence of knowing. And knowing is actually fully engaging, having intercourse with it, to know something. And so I remember, I can tell you that I was in Laurel, Maryland, and I had just started my business and I had limited funds. And when you first start your business, your mind is on paying the bills. And I have been laid off. I've gotten a lump sum from being laid off. Sometimes even when a contract ends, I have had situations where I have been when I have taken a leap, right? And so when you take a leap, when you've been laid off, or when you are creating something brand new, you look at what your budget is, and you're looking at, can I cover my bills? That's usually the first place that you go, is, can I cover my bills? And that's because oftentimes good girls have been taught how to be responsible. And so here's where orgasmic abundance come in terms of point number 3, outside of just following your bliss. Being responsible means to be responsible. It does not always mean that being responsible is, I have to carry this as a burden. And so when I put together number 2, which is following my bliss, and I had to now put together following my bliss with the arts, with the feminine arts that I had learned in order to move towards the direction. And so here's the scenario. So you all may have heard this story, but I definitely wrote about it. I needed a vacation. Pleasure was the center of my life for about 3 years in terms of, for me personally. A lot of times we learn things and we want to go teach other people, but I spent a certain amount of time immersed in this for my life, because I had been a servant leader. I realized that I had been sacrificing and operating unconsciously on a good girl note. You know, I made some decisions and some choices in relationships that put me on that automatic good girl program. You know, get the husband, get the house, get the car, get the picket fence, get all of those things. And so I was a master manifester. I still am. And because I had master coaches who had already taught me how to manifest masterfully, but many of them did not teach me. I went through the pain body to manifest, or I went through the masculine. So when I entered into this part of the journey of pleasure, it took me deeper into the feminine. And so when I spent these years really immersed in pleasure, now life happened, and here I am. I realized it had been months. I had been focused on the business, just focused on the business. And I could feel myself becoming a little too heavy. I could feel myself being a little too serious because I was focused on the numbers. I could feel myself I'm not really engaging any of my tools, because in my mind, I had to make it happen. Come on now. Let me know if I'm not by myself. I had to make it happen, at least in my mind. And there was a little bit of fear that drove me more than my passion, more than my bliss. And so this is where Sacred Sisterhood comes in. I called my friend on the phone and I told her where I was and how I felt and all of that. And she just reminded me of my tools. And she said, just go practice your tools. And so I started with some basics of the tools, and I started to get lighter. And I did some more of the basics of the tools, and I started to get lighter. And then I was like, okay, now I need to do a demonstration outside of fear, right? So the first thing that happened was I went to a service. I think I was serving as the associate minister this particular day. At the end, for announcements, a sister comes up and says, I have an opportunity for you to have Soul Train cruise tickets. All you have to do is show up. It's free. Here's the yes. Here's the yes. Here's the match to my vision. Here's the orgasmic abundance. Pleasure and manifestation of something that I desired. A vacation, an opportunity to get into my goddess zone, which I know has worked for me before. But now I'm in a different place in my life, and oftentimes all we do is consult the limits and not the possibility. And at that time, when I was feeling heavy and so serious and focused on the numbers, I was consulting the limits. And then as I got lighter and I got lighter, here comes this yes. And I'm sitting here like, wow. So I raised my hand. Yes, I'm going on the cruise. I'll take it. Count me in. So now she said, all you have to do is get there. And I'm telling you, my funds were so low. That time I was not investing in gold, or didn't know much about cryptocurrency, or if I was investing, no, I don't think I was investing in gold at that time. I didn't know about that. And all I knew was how to be a minister, a heart servant leader. I didn't even know a whole lot about social media, and I had built other people's businesses. So I knew about business. I knew about strategy. Of course, so the whole point of me jumping out there on my own was to be able to do for myself what I had been doing for other people's companies. So check this out. So then I had about 2 weeks to figure out how not to use my resources and create money out of thin air. Orgasmic abundance. Now, you all know I teach some very, very specific tools in terms of sex magic and some ways to use your feminine pleasure. I would please consider joining the Rites of Passage process to learn more about that. So I use these tools. It was not in my head. It was in my body. It was in my spirit. It was in my dance. It was in pleasure. And I, listen to this now, creating some money out of thin air. It wasn't that I didn't have a funder. I didn't have, at that time, I was separated from my husband then, and I dare not ask him for a damn thing. Especially for my pleasure. And so I remember starting to go through my resources. Who do I know? Same thing in terms of business a lot of times. Who do I know? Right? Come on now, talk to me. And so I started, who do I know who does this? Who do I know that knows this? And I started to go through my list, kind of probably like you when you've done any other project, multi-level marketing, anything like that. I had so many no's. I hit so many no's. And every time I hit a no, there was a point in a threshold where I felt like it was not going to happen. So I had to surrender a little bit. I had to surrender a little bit, but still hold the vision in the high place, not in the sunken place, not in the place of defeat. So I'm gonna keep calm. Every day I'm gonna do something in the direction of my pleasure, in the direction of my desire, and they are going to mix and meet. That was my decree and my declare, because my yes was firm. So I was calling. Let's just say that at the 11th hour, not just one yes came in, but 3 yeses. So I'm going to give a bonus. A lot of times we have a tendency to give up at the 11th hour. I cannot tell you how many of us get close to, we say yes to something. We say, yes, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. Even sometimes, how many of you have declared, I'm going to do the rites of passage process. I'm going to do the Juicy You. I'm going to coach with you privately. I'm going to go on this trip. I'm going to give me a husband. I'm going to do this. And when you get to the 11th hour, a lot of times when it does not look like you when you look like it's not manifesting the way you thought it was, that you give up. We sometimes we give in to defeat so easily. And a lot of times, here's the ironic thing when it comes to mothers and women. We will do that for ourselves. We will give up on ourselves, but let your children be in trouble, or let something in a family member be in trouble, because a lot of times we're looking for significance through people needing us. But what about when you need you? What about when your vision needs you? What happens is, when we say yes to ourselves, to our personal development, to our growth, a lot of times we see that as an extra. We see that as, and that's how we've been taught to hold pleasure. We've been taught to hold pleasure as something that is negotiable, that's optional. And so what I'm telling you is, I have been living a life of pleasure as a priority. But when I came into business, I still kind of had them separate, because I thought I needed to be serious and responsible and all of these things with my bills. And who am I to take a trip? Because I didn't know how to be an entrepreneur. Mind you, I'm retraining my brain from being an employee. Because let me tell you something, you can become an entrepreneur and just trade spaces when you've been an employee for 20 years, 30 years. Honey, it does not happen overnight. I don't care what anybody tells you. There's an alchemical change that happens in your mind and in your spirit. It is a crossing of the burning sands, probably sometimes for a year, 2 years. It depends on how calcified your pineal gland is, particularly if your addiction is security. Some people are natural risk takers. I was addicted to security. That's what took me so long to answer the call on my life when it came to a lot of different things. I've had many calls. The 11th hour, the calls came in. It was a yes over here, a yes over there, a yes. I had manifested the ticket. And I had a short time window to book the ticket to get to San Diego. All I had to do was get to San Diego. Because I'm a part of a tribe, of a sisterhood of goddesses. This is why this whole thing about I don't trust women and I don't know, I'm by myself, I don't like to ask nobody for something. That is bullshit, y'all. It's just bullshit. It's bullshit that we have bought into by this Western society that is based on ego and pride. And let me tell you something. I went into that goddess community. I put in, hey, I'm going to be in this area. Do y'all know anybody? This woman came forth who was my angel. I did not know her from Adam. We just shared the principles of pleasure, of womanhood, and that was enough. Not only did I don't even remember if she picked me up from the airport, but let me just tell you, for 24 hours, I was in the company of another woman, a white woman who was my sister. I mean, she had the bed draped. There were chocolates on the bed. Manifestation, goddess manifestation, before I even go on the cruise. Took me around San Diego. I mean, it was amazing. The conversation was elevated. And we have forever been bonded because of that. Now look, check this out, y'all. When I talk about orgasmic abundance and trusting your yes and following your bliss and doing a demonstration outside of the limitation. Stop consulting your limitation because it comes from a spirit of not enough, of not worthy. You can have both and. It doesn't have to be either or. A lot of times we do that when it comes to programs, when it comes to sisterhood, when it comes to men, when it comes to love, sex, and money. I either got to do this or I either got to do that. It's all or nothing at all. How many of you all have an all or nothing at all personality? How many of you show up with the all or nothing at all? And I'm telling you, I've been delivered. So, the reason why I got excited in that moment is because I was also with a woman, a sister from a tribe that was a part of my orgasmic abundance. Orgasmic abundance, orgasm doesn't have to be perverted. It is about literally living in the center of your bliss and letting it lead you. And so what we did a ritual together. Had I been with just some ordinary sister who's afraid and thinking something is witchcraft and I have to hide and be judged and because of whatever, I might not have been able to show up and do that. And we went to the ocean. We went to the ocean that day. I'll never forget it. And we did a ritual that day. That was the day that I did such a powerful ritual on the ocean. I believe it was on a full moon. I still have pictures. I post them every now and then because of us on the shore. That's how I manifested this marriage, this relationship that I'm in. Following my bliss. First of all, business and pleasure can mix. Following your bliss is real. It is alchemical. It is spiritual. It is sacred. It will open up a way out of no way. Ain't that what the old people say? It will open up a way out of no way. If you don't believe me, borrow my faith. Trust me. Trust me when I tell you, I have done it time and time again. It was the elder mothers who started to teach me this skill. First of all, they taught me this skill when I've wanted to go to one of Vianna's advanced workshops. So when I'm not just selling you or promoting you, because I have conversations with you all and I hear your limits sometimes and the limits you put on yourself. And sometimes our post-traumatic slave syndrome has us thinking that somebody's trying to sell us, take advantage of us. So we have a love-hate relationship with sales and products and offers and services sometimes. And I remember Mama Amasi said to me, write the check. That was the beginning of me learning how to practice this ancient art beyond the program of being responsible in the masculine way. Write the check. But Mama, I don't have the money in my account. I don't know. I got some bills coming up. To this day, I wrote the check. I got the ride to New York. I'm going back to my manifestation I'm just in this zone. Sometimes you got to remind yourself and speak over your own life to just activate your own magic, because each and every one of you have it. Each and every one of you have magical moments that you might think is isolated. Those magical moments are not isolated. Those magical moments, they don't need you, the part of you that needs to prove something. Those magical moments don't need the part of you that needs to be approved of. Those magical moments doesn't need the part of you that compares yourself to someone else. Those things sabotage. Those things that you are afraid of somebody, something, whatever the case may be, your magic doesn't need that. And so the reason why I'm going back in time just to take myself to that moment, because those are the times when you not believe. And you all have had them just like I have. We're no different in that area. And so I wrote that check. I'll never forget it. And I don't remember the rest of how that tuition was paid. I never missed a meal. I never missed $1. I had everything that I needed, and I had a breakthrough, and my life was changed, and it sent me on further in my course. I'm telling you, and some of you all can testify, because some of you all have done it, particularly those of you who are juicy butterflies and you went through the full 6 months. You went through the full 6 months. Sometimes you've had to shift things and move things. Trust and believe. You making room for more. So then let's get back to that. I had this magical night with my sister, fully in my feminine, manifesting. I didn't know that I was manifesting, but I could feel the release and the letting go on that full moon. If you want that ritual, I'm going to be sharing all of this in the rites of passage process that starts in May. I went on that cruise. I had the time of my life. I pushed my edges. There are times when I wanted to go to bed that I stayed up later than I had to or should have. It was all kind of things. I played with outfits. I just allowed myself to be, to do, to have, to manifest. Even there, I continued to play in my magic. It was what I needed. It was because, mind you, like I said, 3 years, I had been pleasure-centered, pleasure priority. I began to step into my vision, started to take myself too seriously. It was what I needed. I'm so freaking magical that sometimes I don't even know I'm magical, and so are you. I come back. I think that I'm coming back earlier than I had planned. Y'all know at that time, some of you know I was a diehard Saints fan. And I do mean diehard, because the Saints will drop you up, bring you up and drop you right back down with their record. You know how the Saints will do you, right? So I go to a Saints game. It's where we watch the game, a pub where we watch the game. This was another form of pleasure for me, because oftentimes people will ask the question, how do you know when you need to do self-care and when you need to say yes to something? And I remember the elder teaching me, you don't know until you say yes. You don't know until you say yes, because when you know that self-care is required, you will hear yes. But a lot of times we are used to only responding with no. No, I can't do that. But what if you can? What if you say yes? What if you stretch? I did that particular day. Still in my zone, right? Orgasmic abundance. Once again, I get there. My mind is still on the cruise. It's in the waters. It's with Gimme Ya. I get into it, and I'm like, I had to get myself mentally prepared to be back in the DMV, to be honest with you. So I come in, I see this brother, and I asked him if he had something that I wanted. It was not even no flirting, nothing. He said, yes, as a matter of fact, I do. And from that day, from that moment to this moment, we have been inseparable. Abundance is not just dollars and cents. It's not just you worrying about how you're going to pay your bill, how you're going to move into that house, how you're going to do it. There are leases, contracts, certain things that you are in that a lot of times you don't know that you have options around. Now, I can extend this in terms of law, in terms of commerce. When Napoleon Hill teaches on Think and Grow Rich, he dedicated a whole chapter to sexual transmutation. Now, it's definitely it definitely leans on the side of the masculine, in that he says that men need it. Men need to be able to release their sexuality, and that's true. Now, that's another science that we have. That's why many of us are attracted to powerful men, responsible men, that type of thing, because it really is a turn on. It's not just that but we don't want to honor that it's a turn on and all of that. So that part is true, but guess what? We are supreme when it comes to our sexual prowess, our sexual desires. Therefore, we are supreme manifestors, because we are the creatures who can give life and sustain life. It does not matter if you chose not to have any children. And sometimes I would let that stop me, but that does, in terms of knowing how powerful and potent womanhood is. And so when it comes to this thing called orgasmic abundance, some of you are just coming in. I just gave the 1 through 2, 3 and summarized it twice. I want you to go back and look through it. But if I could just say, borrow your belief, lean on somebody else's faith, stay in the energy where you can practice and be celebrated, practice and be reminded. You get up, you might fall down 3 times, but you get up 5 times and you move forward towards your desires. Business and pleasure can mix, and it can mix when you say that you are the total woman, that you no longer have to compartmentalize your life. Now, in terms of being able to use orgasmic abundance, when you do work for someone else, when you are looking to retire, when you do have a certain field, it's just about being savvy. What I didn't get a chance to say earlier, thank you, Holy Spirit, is the pleasure that I'm talking about, the orgasm that I'm talking about, is something that is very private and personal. What makes us think that to be orgasmically abundant, that it means any type of lasciviousness or that it's overdone? It is because we have had a perverted masculine version of what orgasm is and what money and abundance is. We have been judging what pleasure, what prosperity is based on a masculine reality. Why? Because when the woman starts to tap into who she really is, she cannot be controlled. The woman is really a $1 trillion enterprise, because women drive the economy in her own home. So therefore, if you are that powerful to drive this economy in terms of your purchasing power, in terms of what products are presented, guess what? Then you are that powerful to drive it in your own reality. And so if I make her feel shamed, if I condition her sensuality, her sexuality, then I also can control how she directs her resources. And that's a much deeper teaching that can be supported by facts, data, science, and psychology. This is not something that we just said, oh yeah, I'm sensual, I'm sexy. There are people who talk about being sexy and teach about being sexy. That's not what I'm trying to do, is just talk about just being sexy. That's not it. There's something so potent, so fertile about our orgasmic abundance. And I had to go and have a lot of them to make my energy lighter. And that's really what I will end on. Some of us we have been conditioned to be so dense, so heavy in terms of our reality creation, and we take it so seriously, and we become so handcuffed by what we can see. But sometimes, y'all, to get a little visual assistance, you have to close your eyes. What better way to close your eyes is to go deep into the halls and the crevices of your own self? What better way to release your own juices, not just from the physical, but to release it into the atmosphere so that you now become a magnet for the desires of your heart. So I wanted to come in and just share that really quickly because, oh my goodness, I have evidence. I have evidence, and you have evidence. And if you get a chance, please just upride yourself and put in the comments ways that you have evidence, because a reminder is a blessing and it can take you higher. I want to know what's your evidence of the times where you've created out of something from nothing. There are times when things seem like they manifested out of thin air. What I'm saying to you is orgasmic abundance can be your normal. I'm looking forward to sharing more about orgasmic abundance in the months to come. In fact, in the She Magic monthly coaching clinic, we're shifting from She Magic Money as of this week for this month, and we're going into She Magic Sex Magic. She Magic Sex Magic. And so how many of you, I'm thinking about doing a class, y'all, a special class. I don't know if it'll be in the coaching clinic. It may be in the coaching clinic. It may be in the coaching clinic. With some treats. How many of you want to get really specific? How to give good head, or head doctor? I think I like head doctor because y'all know I'm always going to combine the mind, body, and spirit connection. So I'm thinking about doing something like that as a bonus, or as the main course for the month of May, my birthday month. Yes, let's get a little trill with this thing. So after this month, the next 4 months, we'll be looking into She Magic, Sex Magic, and Orgasmic Abundance will be all the way through that. And check this out. Some of these things, if you are a part of the rites of passage process, you will, especially if you enroll before the month of May. Yes, you did, Dana. You did that thing, honey. Dana says, I created a car without any money in my bank account. Yes, you did. I remember that. I remember that. And that is why I love to see you all working in your magic. I'm telling you, you just keep going higher and higher. But those of you who are in the Juicy Womanhood Rites of Passage process will have access to these coaching clinics. I'm going to give away at least 2 of the coaching clinics at no cost to you, and no additional cost to you. Some of you may already be enrolled in the She Magic coaching clinics. So it's an even exchange, and maybe I'll have another bonus. If you would like to just stay and be one of the watchers, send me a note, and I will also send you the Orgasmic Abundant Woman Summit, which is available for sale, the entire package of all of the sessions, which I think there were 7 sessions. That is also available to you. I will send you the link so that you can enjoy that teleseries, which had real tangible skills and tools, especially for those of you who are serious about your business. That's a great offer. But listen, orgasmic abundance is real. And I look forward to sharing. I got so many things I want to tell you that's happening right now, so many moving pieces that I'm so excited about. I'm just going to keep on teasing you with it, because a little teasing is good for a big old, gigantic, juicy, overflowing, dripping, wet, gushing orgasm. So anyway, I enjoyed talking to you all. I know we got started a little late, but I'm going to get on out of here. So let's turn down for what? I love you, and there's nothing you can do about it. I look forward to connecting with you on the other places, other sides where we make magic. Ciao, everyone. I look forward to your testimonies in here, how you created stuff out of thin